Hi, thank you so much for coming. I'm Felicia Steyer, and this presentation is called Relationships versus Joins versus Blends. We're going to be talking all about the basics of data models, data structures, and how these different approaches will affect how your data is structured and aggregated. Does anybody need that QR code for the audio? Because I can put that back up. Anybody? Okay. All right. There you go. Grab the QR code. Get connected. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. I am not a Salesforce employee. I am not getting paid to do this presentation for you. Really, my reward is seeing all of you learn this content, enjoy it, send me your questions, tell me it was great. Okay, I'm here because you're here. So thank you so much for coming, and I am so thrilled that we've got like a packed crowd here today. So just thank you. Use the clicker. All right, I'm Felicia Steyer. You might know me online as Graphhopper. I use this cute little bug avatar on Reddit, Twitter, Blue Sky. My real face is on LinkedIn, but I'm there too. Feel free to connect with me. I'm super approachable. You'll be surprised how few people reach out to us. And then I also write for Playfair Data. So if you go to playfairdata.com and check out our written tutorials, I have a lot of content up there, including 4 or 5 pieces about data models. Today in this session, we're going to be talking all about data models. So what are joins, relationships, and blends in theory? We're going to demo it, showing how to configure each of those approaches. And then we're going to end with a comparison, talking about the use cases for each, along with some of the cons or things to watch out for when you use each of those models. There's seats up here if you want them, like rows 4 and 5. So feel free to grab a seat if you're in the back. So what are relationships, joins, and blends? These are tools to connect different tables or data sources within Tableau. Maybe you're combining orders with returns. Maybe you're looking at customer behavior along with contact details, or any other combination of tables. If you're working across tables, you're going to be using one of these. All 3 of these tools have different interfaces and different behaviors. So if you understand the subtleties of these differences, it's going to save you time because you'll know which one to start with. You'll have to experiment and then change approaches. Relationships are going to be our first tool, okay? This is the default tool. It's the easiest to get to. You might hear it referred to as noodles because as you drag things around, you'll get these curvy lines that look like spaghetti noodles. They are joins on steroids, okay? When you're using a relationship, it's going to have a contextual join, which is going to automatically hide your nulls in some scenarios, and it has smart aggregations. What smart aggregations do, they perform your aggregation within the source table, and then they apply that value across your final data structure. So this gets you around the duplication that can happen with traditional joining. They tend to be more efficient, and they also are stored more compactly in your extracts. Joins, these are the traditional bread and butter of data engineering, okay? If you're using a join, this is going to work the same in SQL, Alteryx, Tableau Prep, any tool you can think of, a join is going to work the same way, okay? If you're following a tutorial from a different tool, maybe you want to join. If you want control over what exactly your data looks like and how it's structured, you might want to use a join. Finally, blends are our wild children. They work completely differently from the other 2 tools. Relationships and joins are both techniques that happen within a data source, okay? Blends happen across 2 data sources. They're highly customizable. Each worksheet with a blend can be customized in a different way, which is unique, and they can be unpredictable. So because of that flexibility, you have to QA them all the time, okay? Blends are intimidating, but they can do things that aren't possible with joins and relationships. We'll talk more about that later. Here's the summary slide. I promised you summary slides to take pictures of. I'll leave this up until I don't see any phones. Okay, this just talks about everything we went through in the first 3. If you're just coming in, there are some seats in this section in the first few rows. We also have some seats over here. I don't want you to have to stand up for 40 minutes, so feel free to grab a seat. All right. Oh, we got some seats over there. Yeah. All right, demo time. I'm going to be opening a workbook that's been prepped for this. Tab, there we go. So we're going to start by talking about relationships again. Again, this is our default joining tool, or relating tool. I'm going to jump into the data source and show you how to configure a relationship. If I drag this check-ins table around, you can see the noodle. So we see that curvy line, that's the noodle. If I want to add additional tables to this, I'm going to drag them onto my canvas, and then I can choose which place to drop them. If I put them here, this is a multi-fact relationship. It gets interesting, and there are lots of sessions on that. We're just doing 101 today. So I can drop it anywhere to add to my relationship. Then if I want to configure it, I click on the noodle itself to set the terms of the relationship. So here I'm joining checkouts to check-ins based on loan ID. Let's undo that. Let's talk about vocabulary here. So this is our canvas, and then these two rectangles here, these are logical tables, okay? So these are logical tables on the logical layer. We can open either of these to get to a physical layer, which is where joins would be performed. For relationships, we just need to stick to that top level logical layer. Now let's look at how it behaves. So let's go into this relationship worksheet. Right now we can see a bunch of nulls in here, okay? These are not, is it rendering better today? It's a little bit better. I'm sorry that it's fuzzy, I can't control that, okay? I tried to make it a little bit bigger last night so that it renders a little bit better. But we can see all those nulls, right? Now watch what happens as I remove check-ins and checkouts from our detail shelf. My nulls start disappearing. This is because of contextual joining. So when I'm only using dimensions, Tableau is automatically making it an inner join, okay? As we add measures, it creates that outer part of the join. So if you're ever working with a relationship and you're like, I'm missing records, where are my nulls? Add measures. Add a measure from each of your source tables, okay? I don't know why it does it. There's no indicator that it's filtering these out. So be really careful. Next, let's look at our joins. Now joins, we're getting the same result, but our nulls are not automatically hidden. So even, you can see there are no measures in this at all. It's all dimensions. My nulls are still there, okay? As I go into the data source, we can see that there's only one logical table, okay? And there's an indicator that there's a join happening in the physical layer. Now to access the physical layer, I'm going to double click on the logical layer. Now I can see that there is a join. If I want to add additional tables to the physical layer, again, it's just a drag and drop, and I can create unions or joins. Now with this menu, I can determine what type of join, and then I can determine the join condition. Let's get rid of events. I didn't actually want to add it, I'll just show you. Let's look at our join condition here. So here, we're getting a full outer join, and it's loan ID equals loan ID. I can have complete control over this. I could turn this into an inner join and hide those nulls, but once they're hidden, they're not going to change based on whether a measure is added or not. Like it's permanently in or permanently out, okay? You can always add a filter, but that's going to be sheet dependent. Finally, let's look at blends. These are crazy. If you look in the top left in my data sources section, yeah, you can see it, perfect. So there is a blue check mark next to checkouts. That's my primary data source. And there is an orange check mark on the check-ins table. That's my secondary data source. So your primary is going to have a blue check mark. Your orange is going to be all of your secondary data sources. You can blend in, 4 or 5 data sources. It gets crazy. But what you want to keep in mind with blends is that the first pill you add is going to determine your primary data source, okay? So if I start building a view and I'm like, oops, I meant to start with the other one, I need checkouts to be primary, you have to completely restart, okay? So be very, very careful when you start building a view with blends because you're locked in after that first pill is dropped, okay? There's no way to toggle it later. Let's look at configuring it. So the possible blend relationships are determined universally across the workbook, and then we can toggle those individual relationships on and off sheet by sheet. So we're going to start by looking at that universal configuration by going to Data and then Edit Blend Relationships. Now we need to choose our data sources. I'm choosing checkouts and check-ins. And then I have this list. Tableau automatically detects if your tables have two names, two fields with the same names and are the same data types, it will automatically detect that and say, hey, I think you should be blending based on these fields. Now we can add additional fields to it by going to this add button. So I could set checkout date equal to check-in date because these are both the same data type. Now something I've run into with this before is that timestamps and dates are technically two different data types. So if you have a timestamp in one and you want to blend it to a date, you're going to have to aggregate that up to a date, okay, or wrap it in date and then do the blend relationship on that. All right, let's cancel, cancel. Now let's look at configuring it within the worksheet. So we have all of those potential relationships that we set in that edit relationship space. Now we can toggle them off and on. So these linking fields are slashed out if it's off, and there's no slash if it's on. So right now we're looking at branch ID along with loan ID. Now let's see what happens to this table when I turn off loan ID. So I'm turning off that linking field, and now I have a bunch of stars instead of my check-in dates. This is happening because I am joining my check-ins and checkouts based on just branch ID now. So each branch has a lot of check-ins and it has a lot of checkouts, and we don't have a one-to-one relationship. Now, if I were working with a join or a relationship, I would be seeing multiple rows for the multiple check-in dates. Blends cannot add rows, okay? This applies to that outer portion of the join. You can only get a left join, not a full outer join. So I'm not going to get loan IDs that only exist in my secondary table. And I'm not going to get new levels of detail from my secondary table, okay? So what's going on here is it's trying to show multiple check-in dates, and instead of creating a new row, it's giving me a star error to say, hey, there should be 2 rows here. I can't make rows. Here's an error message, okay? So just keep that in mind. Blends cannot add rows. That's the easiest way to understand it. Let's talk about granularity again. So this is a sheet that I built starting with branch ID. So the first field that I added was branch ID. Now I built the exact same table, but instead of starting with branch ID, I started with checkout date. It's the same 3 pills. The only thing that's being changed is that I started building the view in one with branch, and that was my primary table. It's too broad. It's not detailed enough. When I built it starting with check-ins, I have those individual loan IDs in my base primary table. I'm able to bring in that additional context from my higher level table, okay? So start with your most detailed table, start building with that one. Remember, you can't add more rows, and then bring in your secondary table. So blends are very, very tricky. Whenever I'm working with a blend, I keep a table and then also my visualization so that I have something to check it against. It's also very useful to use that duplicate as crosstab so that you can create your scatter plot or your beautiful bar chart, duplicate it as a crosstab, and then check that crosstab against the source of truth, because these get very tricky very quickly. If you're working with multiple sheets with multiple blends, you have to make sure that they all have the same relationships turned off or on. It's a QA nightmare, but it can do very powerful things. Okay, that takes us through the demo. I'm going to jump back into the presentation. All right, if you're following along or if you're at home, this is a bunch of screenshots and notes. I took notes for you. You'll get this in the PDF afterwards. Let's get to the takeaways section. Okay, our use cases. When in doubt, start with a relationship, okay? Relationships are going to work for you like 80% of the time. They're great at situations where you have one very detailed data source and then one maybe less detailed data source. Or if you want to add some additional context, like customer service notes to sales, where they might have called customer service 3, 4, 5 times for the same sale, but you don't want to duplicate that sale number. It's because that sale is going to be calculated within the sales table. Then you'll also get the context of those notes, but your number is not going to be duplicated 4, 5, 6 times. Joins are great when you want control, when you want to reshape your data, intentionally add rows. Maybe you're scaffolding a date, maybe you are wanting to manually fill in some space. You know, really nice when you're doing builds like Sankey's. You know, maybe you want to create multiple points for a curve, okay? Joins are great for that. It's also nice if you're following a tutorial that maybe wasn't designed for Tableau and you need to speak a universal data engineering language to be on the same page. Joins are going to be universal. Blends are my tool of last resort. So if I'm working with a data source that doesn't have a logical layer, so GA4, that custom connector, no logical layer. I think for a while BigQuery was the same way, where it takes you to like a query interface instead of that logical canvas. So a blend would be the only way to add additional context to those data sources. It can be a quick and easy way to add targets to like some sales data. Let's say you have a published data source, you don't want to touch it, you don't really want to change it, but you want to add a little more context. A blend is a nice, easy, quick way to do that, but you have to check your work. Let's talk about the gotchas for each of these. Contextual joins will hide your nulls. So if you're working with relationships and you don't see any nulls, throw a measure on there, okay? And just keep in mind that it might be hiding things from you that you don't expect. Because of those contextual joins, calculations get more complicated. So if I want to do something if the value is null, if I want to count how many nulls are existing in my data source, especially if it's coming in from that full outer join null, relationships are not going to be your tool. You'll want to use joins for that situation. And then smart aggregation is really, really fantastic for deduplicating, but when you start multiplying a measure from one table against a measure from another, or a condition from one table against a measure from another, it gets complicated. Bethany Lyons has some fantastic material. She has a 3-part series about relationships that was put out in 2020. And that is what I go to when I have those situations. There's fantastic documentation on it, but it gets very confusing. And I wind up using that documentation almost every time that I cross tables in calculations. Joins. Joins are fantastic, but they can be inefficient. So if you have a non-unique join condition where you're matching one row to multiple rows, your data can blow up like that. You can wind up with an extract that's 10 times the size of your 2 tables added together very easily. So your server admin might hate your joins, okay? They can get very big, very hard to refresh, very slow to work with. So if you're working with big data, with fuzzy joins, a relationship is going to be more performant. Then blends, you have to QA blends so much. So watch out that you can't add rows, watch out that your blend relationships make sense. Always check your work with blends because they can trip you up and they don't necessarily tell you that they're going to trip you up. If you want to learn more, there's a ton of content available about data models in Tableau. This is the basics, but it was a new feature released in 2024 that I showed you just a sneak peek of. That was Multifact Relationships. So there is a really, really good hands-on session that's available today at 2:30 and then tomorrow morning and afternoon, Data Modeling 201. All right, I will keep this up as long as your phones are up, so feel free to take pictures. Yeah, this is a great session if you really want to get in the tool with some guidance. All right, there are also some other some other speakers presenting about data models here. So there's Diverse Analytics Using Tableau Multifact Relationships by Sean Miller. If you're familiar with Workout Wednesday, Sean Miller is one of the hosts for Workout Wednesday. I also work with him for the KC Tableau user group. And he'll be presenting with Thomas Nan and Shitali Mahur, who are both Salesforce employees. Thomas has been working on multi-fact relationships for like 2 or 3 years now. He is a pro. So if you have any questions about it, go there, ask Thomas and Sean. So that will be, okay, the first one's already happened, but there will be another one tomorrow afternoon. Then we have Mastering Multi-Fact Relationships by Erica Hughes, who is another Workout Wednesday host. She's fantastic. That is today at 11:30. And then finally, there's the Relationship Data Model, Let Tableau Write Your SQL For You, which personally I want to catch, which is today at 12:30. It's a double header, so you can go to Erica's and then Kirk's at stage 6, which is in the same room right over there. So if you really want to learn about data models, check out stage 6 around lunchtime for sure, and then he'll also be presenting Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. Then if you want more content from me, I have that Bringing Tables Together series at playfairdata.com, where I go through all of this in written detail, even more detailed. It's really great. So you should totally check out that series. Yeah. All right, phones are still up, so I'm gonna hold on the slide. That's okay. It's okay. Okay, and thank you so much for coming. Again, like I said before, I'm not paid for this. It's your presence that is my payment. So please stick around, ask me questions. Thank you so much for coming out.